Right, if you want the best steak you've ever had, stop salting it in advance. And if you feel like you struggle to get a decent sear on your steak, listen carefully. You can season your steak before you cook it, but you've got 2 windows in which to do so. Either well in advance, we're talking 12 plus hours beforehand, or just before it hits the pan. You see, the point of salting your steak is to dry brine. The salt pulls moisture out of the meat, which in turn dissolves the remaining salt and gets pulled back into the meat over time, seasoning it, drying it out, and breaking down muscle proteins. A drier steak is also much easier to get a sear on, and any supermarket steak wrapped in that plastic packaging is going to be very wet. Just patting it dry isn't enough because we're talking about molecular moisture. The problem with this method is, if you for example take your steak out of the fridge 20 minutes before you cook it and then salt it, it'll draw out moisture that'll just sit on the surface, making your steak even wetter, not really doing any brining and just making it harder to sear. If you salt just before it hits the pan, okay, you won't be doing any brining, but it also won't be making your steak any wetter. Just take your steak out of the packaging the morning you're going to cook it. Although to be honest, I think this one's been in my fridge for like 36 hours or something like that. The fridge is a very dry environment, so it works really well. If you've got something to raise the steak up and encourage airflow, that'll be perfect, but if you don't, I'd suggest flipping it about halfway through its brining. Liberally salt it, chuck it in the fridge and let it chill. You'll notice when you actually come to cook it, it is very dry. Grab yourself an unofficial control group pan at the high end of medium-low. Sear it up in a bit of beef dripping, and if like me you have a bit of a tendency to overcook steaks, finish your garlic, butter and aromatics together and pour over the steak while it rests. I like to rest for as long as it cooked, so 4 minutes in this case.